All right, welcome to Wholesaling the Cool Way. We're live today for about the next hour or so. So if you're seeing this and you're jumping on, just drop in the comments your name and where you're from and what you're working on in your business. And we'd love to collaborate with you guys throughout this hour or so. So we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to go over our week in business. We're going to break down a couple of deals that we each closed in the past week and share tips and tricks and tools and stuff from our businesses and hopefully help some people. So if you have any questions or anything, just drop them in the comments anytime. Feel free to interrupt us and we'll get to them when we can. So looking forward to it. But do you want to kick us off with your week in business, break down a deal or two that you closed this week?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm still messing with the YouTube live settings. Got it. Okay. So yeah, this week we were just talking offline, but we closed a couple of deals this week, which is great. Very grateful for that. That's 3 deals in the last 2 weeks that we've closed after we had a big drought. So it feels like a relief. It's so weird. Probably I was checking in last week, but it's probably the longest drought we've had since probably my first year in business. Just we had one closed deal for all of May and June, and it was actually a little scary. But then closing 3 deals in 2 weeks is nice. So
Yeah,
feel like
that
we're back
sounds
on
so
track.
good.
Yeah, yeah. And Jasper, you mentioned this. We've talked about this before, but a lot of times, it's like 3 months out of your 12 months make up a huge part of your revenue.
Yeah.
And so I have to remember and have faith on that, because we closed 9 deals a couple months ago in April, and we can have more months where we close a whole bunch of deals and make a lot of profit. So
Yeah.
keep the faith, but it gets scary sometimes when there's nothing closing and you got bills to pay. Sorry, I'm gonna let the dog out. Want to go out? One. Um, yeah. So anyway, I can break down a couple of deals we did, and I can go through some KPIs real quick. I said we did 2 closings. We also got one contract this week, our first contract in Florida. We've been talking here in about how North Carolina has a bill in the Senate where they are trying to basically outlaw wholesaling or make it so you can't do much in real estate without a real estate license. So we've been looking at other markets, and we did our first campaigns in Florida just starting like this past week. We got about 65 leads our first week, which is great. A lot
Hmm.
of response. And then we got our first contract. We sent 26 offers this week. I think we might have sent more than that last week. But anyway, got our first contract in Florida, so I'm excited about that. It's a vacant land contract. And then we sold one this week too, which was a deal that we revived. It was a deal that we had, and it kind of, I think I've shared some of our disposition issues in the past. Definitely shared with you offline, Jasper.
Yeah.
But so we've had just some deals that didn't get much attention or many eyes on them, and it was kind of frustrating. And so this was one of those deals that we kind of thought was dead. And then I got a message on Craigslist from a guy. I was like, "Hey, you still got that piece of land? I'll offer you this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let's talk." And then we started talking, and then we reached back out to the seller because we had canceled with the seller because we couldn't get any activity. And the seller was good. We actually got a price reduction. We had canceled with the seller, whatever, a month ago, but it was still up on Craigslist. And then we went back to the seller because I had a solid offer from this guy, and we went back to the seller, got a price reduction based on that, and it's scheduled to close next week. He wanted to close within a week's time. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so that was a victory this week, and yeah, it's kind of fun for me to be back doing a little bit of dispo because I haven't done it in a while. Like talk to buyers and just talked about deals and negotiating and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we signed the purchase agreement on that on, I think they signed it July 3rd before everybody went away, for
Yeah.
vacation. So, yeah, so that was a victory this week. I was just looking to see if I had any other KPIs that I wrote down here, but I don't. So I'll just talk about briefly these 2 deals that we closed this week. They're both vacant land deals. First one was a vacant lot in Mebane, North Carolina, which is Alamance County, and that's a pretty good market right now. Things move pretty fast there. It's kind of a bedroom community of Raleigh and Durham and Chapel Hill now, and there's a lot of development there. So we got this one under contract, and it's a pretty good lot. It's like a quarter acre lot, but it's still on a dirt road, so maybe not as appealing to a lot of builders. but it does have water and sewer available there for hookup. So it was a pretty straightforward deal. We got this under contract. I'm looking at my notes here. We got the lead came in on May 13th. It was a direct mail lead. And so usually those pop pretty quickly. If you get a lead from direct mail, those people, they're picking up the phone to call you and say they're ready to sell. So they're usually ready to go once they call. So the lead came in 513. Oh, wow. Well, maybe I'm wrong about this contract. Oh no, yeah, contract 515. We got the contract 2 days later. So I
Nice.
was, yeah. So the seller lead came in 513. We got a contract for the price we offered her. We didn't even haggle on that. It was a, uh, offer that we sent in a check letter and direct mail, and then we closed it on 7/3. So about 6 weeks out. The buyer on that wanted to do a 30-day due diligence and a perk test. Wait a minute, no, not a perk test, but a survey maybe.
Mhm.
Anyway, so that's pretty cool. We got it. We got the seller lead came in, contract in 2 days for our initial offer price, and then we sold it. When did we sell that? I think we sold it within a few days of contract. I didn't write that down on my pad, but and we sold it for full price, full asking price, because it's in Mebane. Uh, yeah, I guess that's all on that. The profit wasn't big on that though because of the gravel road and stuff. It was only a 7K profit on a piece of land.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but that's not bad. Just quick, easy deal. Sold for. We had it under contract for 7. We sold it for 15. There are a few expenses in there, so we made seven and change on that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's nice when you have some of those simple deals that aren't a bunch of title issues and errors and all that sort of stuff.
yeah. It was just it closed pretty much on time as expected. So
Yeah.
that's always nice. And then the other one we sold is a zero point 0.9 acre lot in Robeson County, and that's kind of a not. It's not a real upscale county. The areas that we've gotten some of these lots in are, a lot of mobile homes and a lot of lower income people. This one has water available, but it needed a septic. We got it for 13K, and we were asking 30. We sold it for 26.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, so the buyer came from Facebook groups, from scraping Facebook groups, and we did a perk test on that. It took a little bit longer, I think, on this one. Let's see, we sold it on, oh wow, we sold it on 4/14 and we closed it on 7/3. And I don't even remember what the delay was on this one, but I
Probably
think
title issues or something, right?
I think there were title issues. I'd have to go back into Podio. Yeah,
Yeah.
4/14 to 7/3. That took us 5, 6, 2.5 months to close. So it had to be title stuff.
Yeah.
But if I act ignorant about my deals, it's because I have a team of 6 or 7 people and they do a lot of this stuff. So I don't always know or remember all the details because I'm doing a lot of different things. But anyway, um, yeah. So I'll just do the timeline on the lead. The lead came in on February 2nd of this year. We signed a contract with them on April 4th.
Mhm.
So 2 months of follow up on that, initial contact, and then 2 months of follow up to sign that. I do remember as an out of state seller. So there was a lot of back and forth with him. And then when we had to close, there was back and forth with the air stuff and then the mobile notary and all those things.
Mhm.
But then we actually had to extend the contract in June because the buyer was still engaged, but it had expired. So then we extended it in June, then we closed it in July.
Nice.
So yeah, but that's a 13K profit on a piece of vacant land. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
a nice,
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that's all the stuff I wrote down for those deals. So if you guys have any questions or anything about any of the deals or any of the particulars, I can always fill in more later. But
Oh,
just
was
wanted
that
to,
second one that you mentioned from direct mail also?
that was an SMS deal. Thanks.
Nice.
Good question. Yeah, that one was an SMS campaign. And yeah, I mean that's still our primary driver of lead flow is SMS.
Mhm.
Some guerrilla marketing and direct mail, and then some of this other stuff. And I shared with you offline, Jasper, but I can share with anybody who's listening about direct mail because we've been talking about it. But we were able to look at our numbers, our most recent numbers on it, and we've spent 7,000 on direct mail so far this year, and we've made 42,000. So we're right at 6x ROI. And I know we still have leads out there, so we'll probably get up to 7 or even 8x ROI
Yeah.
on the campaigns we've done so far. And you know, once we get our war chest built back up, we'll be doing more direct mail.
Yeah,
But
that's a great return. So
yeah, 6x, and I think our overall, I've shared it on other podcasts, but I think our overall ROI on direct mail is more like 7 to 8x in general,
yeah.
historically. So I highly recommend it. The only downside that I see to direct mail is the upfront cost. It's definitely more upfront cost for you, and you have to wait to recoup that cost. But usually you recoup it on your first deal. But
Yeah,
you have to have the money to lay out to start it.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the breakdowns. Those are some good breakdowns. I think the takeaways for me, a couple things. One is that the dispo strategies that you use are free. And so a lot of people when they're getting started, that can be a hang up. They don't have the funds to do a lot of expensive marketing, but you found a buyer on Craigslist and then you found a buyer on Facebook groups. So completely free. There's no excuse for anyone to not sell a deal pretty much is my takeaway from that. And also we've talked about it before, I think in our dispo episode, but Craigslist is still alive and well. Clearly, it's still you could still get good buyers from Craigslist, and I think people sleep on that company, but they get like I saw stats or something on that company. They get a lot of visitors every month, so it's still a very I don't know the right word, but it's still a very like platform that people use a lot. So
Viable. Yeah,
yeah,
viable.
yeah, viable is a good word. Yeah.
Uh,
So that was one takeaway I got, and then another one that I think I struggled with when I was getting started and I used to target vacant land is just that a lot of people, I mean, myself, I used to think that no one would sell a piece of land that cheap, right? So, like, you got a piece of land for 7K, 13K, it's not super cheap, 13K, but like 7K. I used to look at these land deals and I was like, man, for me to even make any money on this, I need this land deal like 5K, 3K, 4K, like really cheap. And I used to have a limiting belief where I was like, no one's going to sell a piece of land to me for 3K, 5K, 7K, but they do all the time. You're a testament of it. So I would just share that with anyone listening to don't make assumptions for your sellers, let them hear your offer and they might accept it. So I think that's another takeaway for me. And then on your second deal that you mentioned, that was another limiting belief that I've had, especially when dealing with land, that you can't make money in like like a low income market, something where it's not like a high ARV. But as you clearly showed, I know Robeson County, it's not a great, market, but as you clearly showed, it can be a great market for land at least. And you made a bigger profit on that one than you did on the one in a bigger market, so that's kind of interesting to see too. So just wanted to share that. Those are kind of some of my takeaways from your breakdowns.
yeah, that's good feedback. And Robeson County, I mean, we did a lot of Robeson County marketing in 2024, but it was our biggest revenue county by
Wow.
of all the counties, because I mean, part of the thing is not as many people are working that county because everybody in North Carolina is focused now that word's out, because I'm sharing,
Yeah.
not that we have a million listeners on our podcast, but
Yeah.
if you're listening to our podcast, you're probably in a select few. So now you know that there's money to be made in Robeson County. But yeah,
Yeah.
I could pull it up. We made a ton of money in Robeson County last year, and I think it was like 50% of our revenue and
That's
50%.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because we did like a mobile home deal over there. We got some. I probably shared this one on one of our podcasts. We got a property and it had 2 mobile homes on it and 2 vacant lots, and we bought it all as a package. And it was an elderly lady and she wanted to get rid of it. She didn't need the money or anything, and we made like $55,000 on that deal.
Yeah.
We packaged it out, and one of the mobile homes was livable, and the other one you could fix up, and there was 2 lots, so you could put 2 more homes, and we made like $55,000 on that deal in a poor county for a neighborhood that probably, Jasper, you and I wouldn't want to live in, but as Flipman says, every place is a step up for somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good place for somebody to land, and it was a step up from where they were ultimately. So anyway, it's a good point that there's money to be made in places where you might not necessarily expect it. And the other thing you were saying about the Craigslist is we're selling this house in Fayetteville. And Jasper, you and I have talked about it a lot, but I just got 2 more leads for that house this week on Craigslist. So
Yeah.
I
There you go.
and I have 4 buyer leads on that property, and I think 3 of them are from Craigslist and 1 is from Zillow Fizbo.
Yeah.
Like 4 real leads, So
That's great. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, a lot of the Zillow ones are wholesalers and real estate agents.
Yeah.
But I
I
have
also know
gotten. Go
oh,
ahead. Oh, I was going to say I have gotten some real leads off of Zillow, but if you're going to post on Zillow for sale by owner, you got to expect a lot of real estate agents and wholesalers too.
yeah. Yeah, that's just what I was going to say is that I've noticed, I mean, on Zillow, obviously, but posting in Facebook groups, you're probably going to get at least 50% wholesalers, if not more. But what I've noticed is that Craigslist seems to be pretty legit buyers. Like when I posted deals on Craigslist, you do get a wholesaler occasionally, but for the most part, it seems to be legitimate buyers. A lot of times it does seem to be Hispanic buyers that are looking on there, and they seem to be legit, cash buyers. And so I think it's a great source for people, especially if you're not using it or if you think that it's dead or whatever, it's completely free to sign up and post your deals. So definitely recommend that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it's not a high volume lead source, but you have
no.
to be patient there. It's like fishing. You have to be patient,
Yeah.
but you'll get people.
Yeah, you're not going to get 100 emails, but the emails that you do get will be from people that are very interested, so yeah. But yeah, that's very cool to hear that you had such a big success last year with Robeson County. I would have never guessed that. So that's good advice, nationwide to just look at the counties that other people might not be looking at. Obviously, you'll have less competition, but as you shared, you can still make a large profit in these smaller markets. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's been our strategy ever since. I started in 2020, but really 2021, and when I started, you could still do deals in Durham, Chapel Hill, Chatham County, Pittsboro area. And now it's crazy. We're talking about North Carolina here, but the markets are everybody from all over the country is trying to do deals in those few cities. And so
Yeah,
pretty early on, I started to branch out, and it's been really good to branch out into other counties and brought us a lot of good deals.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Looks like James G is on here. That was on here on the chat.
Oh, nice.
Hey, James.
Welcome, James. If
Yeah,
you guys
and
start marketing in Illinois, I can help listing with your innovations, 1% per deal. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, we
awesome.
might we might start in Illinois. I'm curious. I think we might have asked you this on the last one, but I forgot. What the rules are for Illinois. I've heard that you can wholesale a certain amount of deals per year in Illinois, like it's in terms of assigning contracts, but I think you can still double close unlimited amount. So I'm curious, James, if that is the case or what's the actual rules since you're working there?
And we got somebody else. If you're on the chat, drop in like your name and where you're on from and stuff, because we like to see where everybody's joining us from. And feel free to drop any comments or questions. We're here to just talk about real estate, real talk, and what's going on in business and all that. So
Yeah.
drop your name, where you're watching from, and any questions or anything. But I guess we're gonna switch over. He's got Oh, James is going to be our buyer in the Chicago suburbs, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Light rehabs, sweet. Yeah, I think I told you this on another live, James, but I was there for a good part of, I guess, the year before last. I was there playing pickleball, and I spent the summer in Chicago, but I didn't do much with real estate. I just looked at stuff. We were still working in North Carolina, but it
Yeah.
seems like a cool place to possibly invest. Um, so Jasper, we're going to switch over and check in about your week in business, and you got closed deals or any KPIs or anything to check in about?
Yeah. I've got a great closed deal story to share. So
Oh, that's right. You closed that. You closed that tax one, IRS one.
yeah. Yeah, so this one was tough. I could just run down real quick our numbers from the past week. It was a good week. We each had a shorter week this week because it was the fourth, so we took a day off on Friday, gave the team a day off. But still, we had a good week. So we had four properties that we sold this week. That was great. We sold two of those over asking price, so that was exciting. And then we closed three deals, two of those from the same seller, and then we got two new properties under contract. So that was our week in business on a high level view. But I'd love to break this one down because it was pretty funny. So this lead came in May 2024, so about over a year ago, and it was
Wow.
actually a cold call lead. So we don't do cold calling anymore. But funny enough, I was just doing our quarterly numbers, And so far this year, we've closed 8 deals from cold call leads, which I thought was interesting. And we haven't done any cold calling since December of last year. So
Yeah, because we were both of us were like, no call.
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
So I haven't taken a look at like the ROI, after closing all these deals, but I'm sure it's a little bit better than what it used to be. So
well, yeah, but it was 1.5, right? So now it's going to be
yeah,
two.
yeah, it's probably 2.5, 3.5, nothing crazy, but it has been interesting. I don't want to go back to cold calling, but I've just noticed that it's kind of interesting that we've been closing more deals from it. So, but anyways, this one came in May of 24, and this seller had 2 condos to sell in Fayetteville. And so we were following up with them, obviously, over a year, and we finally got it under contract a little bit earlier this year. That was in April. So we got under contract mid-April, and there were a lot of ups and downs on this deal, especially on the buyer side. So initially, we got under contract, and I thought it was like a smoking deal, and we sold it to New Western, and we were going to make a lot of money on this deal. I was super excited. We sold it to them. I think it was a little bit different each property because one of them was slightly bigger, but I think in total we were slated to make like 55K on this deal combined. And so that was super exciting, right? But as you know, when you sell to New Western, nothing's guaranteed. So we sold it to them. We scheduled a showing, and they completely backed out on us after 2 showings. So after that, now we have no buyer. We have pissed off the seller, pissed off the tenants after doing 2 showings, and so we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place at this point. And so, anyways, I just ate the losses, and I was like, I'm not going to make what I wanted to make on this deal. And I dropped the price quite a bit because we needed to close fast at this point. The seller was pissed off because we were scheduled to close. We missed the date, all that stuff. Anyways, and so throughout this all, though, we were dealing with title issues too, because the seller had a bunch of liens from the city and the county against him, as well as the IRS tax lien, as well as a mortgage. And so this guy he was having a hard time. And so we were trying to help him out, but they were also trying to work through these closing issues. And he had an attorney that he had hired. And so we were dealing, like our closing attorney was dealing with his attorney. And then he was getting frustrated because every time they would reach out to the attorney, they were billing him, even though they were just asking them for like simple questions, like, can you please help us get this IRS payoff? They were billing him every time they like did something tiny, which they weren't doing anything. They weren't even helping him at all. So that was frustrating. And I felt bad for him. And I was like, look, man, just work with our attorneys. Like, we're paying them. You don't have to pay your own attorney also. And so he stopped working with them. Long story short, after a few charges from them. But so we remarketed the property out, and we got a bunch of interest, but just no one wanted to commit to it. And at this point, we were marketing it sight unseen because, like I said, the seller was pissed off and the tenants were pissed off because we did 2 showings with New Western and then another showing with another buyer that we thought was serious, and then they backed out too. So now here we are after 3 showings trying to sell sight unseen. And we finally found a buyer. And this is a referral from one of our existing buyers, thankfully, who went and saw the property, and she backed out. But she was like, but I do know this other guy. And apparently he owns like 50 condos in this condominium complex. And so perfect buyer, right? And so we sold it to him. Long story short, it was not like a huge profit or anything, but we sold it to him, and he wanted to see them. And I was like, look, man, I just told him the story. And I was like, can you just reach out to Annie? She was the one who had saw the properties. I was like, you guys are friends. Like, just reach out to her. She just walked the properties. She can give you the rundown on them. And so thankfully he was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just talk to her about them. So that was nice. And so we went under contract with him, and he's a cash buyer. We were looking to close ASAP, within a week. And this was, I don't remember the exact date that we assigned to him, but it was like mid-May or something. We were hoping to close before the end of May. And then that did not happen. And here we are in July, obviously. And so we spent May and June trying to get in contact with the IRS, and that was just very difficult. And so finally, I had my transaction coordinator that was trying to get in contact with them, and they were just not answering. And at first, I thought she was like not telling me the truth, but then I tried to do it myself, and she was totally telling the truth. And
Yeah.
so she
Nothing like
tried to
being
reach
on
out to
hold.
them. What's that?
Nothing like being on hold with the IRS, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so she was like, yeah, I've been on hold for 2 hours, and they're just like not, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's just working on her work phone. And I was like, well, she's on the phone for 2 hours. She can't like call anyone else. And I'm like, okay, let's just not do this. Like, I'll just handle it. And I literally just took my girlfriend's phone and I put it on hold so I could still make calls, because I need to make calls too and stuff. And so I literally just took my girlfriend's phone on Monday morning, and I just called the IRS, and I was like, I'm just going to sit on hold. And it's funny because I called them on Friday, and they were like, we have so many people that we're talking to, just call back the next business day. And I was like, the next business day? They wouldn't even put me through to put me on hold. And I was like, are you serious? And so I tried to call them 4 different times on Friday, and I got the same message. I was calling like an hour apart each time. Anyways, so I called them on Monday morning, like first thing, and they put me through to at least be on hold. And so I was literally on hold for 2.5 hours. And then I finally get someone to pick up the phone. I was so excited to talk to her. And I was, she was laughing at me, but we were having a good rapport and everything. And then she was like, well, I can't give you this information. I need the actual taxpayer on the line. I was like, okay. So I just patched in the seller and he gave her his social and everything. We were on a three-way and she looked up his information, put me on another hold three more times. And so I was on the phone for over 3 hours with the IRS on Monday. And
Wow.
only 10 minutes of that was probably speaking to a human. The rest of it was hold. And anyways, long story short, at the end of that call, she faxed the payoff right over. And so what his quote unquote attorney had been working on for like a month and charging him every time, I was able to do in 3 hours. It was very frustrating, but I was able to get it done. And she just faxed it right over. And the reason why we did it on the phone is because when you fax it to the IRS, if you fax them a payoff request, it takes 14 business days, which is like a whole nother month. And so he had taxes that were overdue. Like I said, they were threatening foreclosure on tax foreclosure because he was overdue on that. The mortgage company was threatening foreclosure because he hadn't paid his mortgage, and he had liens from the city. Had HOA assessment against him. Like this, this guy had everything. And
Yeah.
so after all this, we finally get the payoff in, and then we finally get the settlement statements out after we have the payoff and everything. And it turns out he's not making anything. He's not making anything. And not only is he not making anything, but he would have to bring $1,000 to closing. And it's just like, oh my God, like I felt so bad for this guy. And so at this point, I think in total we were making like 6K combined on this deal. And so we were just like, just take the extra thousand out of our thing. But I was like, we want to make something for all this work that we put in. So we ended up paying off everything so that he could just walk away, wash his hands of it, and he wouldn't have to bring any money to
I
closing.
mean, that's a gift. That's a gift for him just in that, to unburden himself of all that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like I said, I mean, this seller, I felt bad for the guy. Like he was calling us a lot, and it was a little bit frustrating, because we have a bunch of other deals we're working on. But at the same time, you got to understand where he's coming from, and he's getting calls literally every day from the mortgage people trying to foreclose on him, the tax people trying to foreclose on him. He's getting letters in the mail. The IRS is mailing it. Like I just felt for the guy. I just felt bad for the guy.
Was
And
it was it like
so
a divorce or health issues or what? How did he get in such a mess?
I don't know, man. I think it was health issues. He's a single guy, so I don't think it was a divorce. I think it might have been health issues. But he even shared with me because I got to speak to him a few times too. He was like, I got these properties like it's killer deal. He's like, I bought these for 2,500 a piece. And I was like, how did you end up here? I didn't ask him that, but I was like thinking in my head, I was like, if you got these
Maybe
for
it's
2,500
gambling.
bucks,
Maybe it's
like
just like taking out extra mortgages and running up debts.
yeah. Yeah. So I think pretty much since he bought them, he pretty much never paid property taxes. I think he took out like an equity line against it or refinanced them or something. And yeah, like I said, he just had all this debt. And so at the end of the day, he walked away scot-free, washed his hands of it, and we made around 5,000 in profit after combined on both of these deals after hoping to make 55,000. So yeah, that was a deal story
That's
for,
terrible.
for this week.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's great you made some money, but wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean it's a testament. We share this before, but it's like for anyone listening, especially if you're newer, set your minimum target on a deal. And obviously I was hoping to make a lot more, but these small deals are always going to be your most difficult, most challenging headache deals. Like we closed another deal this week. Maybe I'll share the story next week, but that deal had a few challenges, but it was much easier and we made like 5x the profit. And your bigger deals are going to be much easier and much simpler. And these small deals where you're just trying to make a few thousand are always going to give you the most headaches. That's my experience. So there's sometimes not a way to like avoid them, or know that you're going to get into one of those deals until you're in the thick of it. But just wanted to share that for people. Just give yourself a cushion on the front end in case all these payoffs and stuff do happen. You have to come out of pocket and stuff for the deal to close. So, anyways, that was my deal story. So
Wow,
yeah,
man.
but
Well, yeah, it's the kind of deal where like you want to throw your hands up and just be like, screw it, I'm not doing this deal. But then you've already made a commitment to buyer and seller. So
yeah.
yeah, kudos to you for doing the biting the bullet with the IRS and doing that because
Yeah.
that's so painful.
Yeah. Oh, and then I didn't even share the other challenge with the deal. So we just found out on Tuesday of this week, after we got the payoff and they got the settlement statements and everything, our closing attorney that we're migrating away from just told us on Tuesday, they're like, oh, by the way, we're closed on Thursday and Friday. So, everyone's closed on Friday. They're like, oh, by the way, we're also closed Thursday. And I was like, oh, that's great. And so we didn't have the settlement statement until after 5 p.m. on Tuesday, right? And they're like, oh, by the way, we're closed Thursday. I was like, oh, sweet. And so the buyer, of course, was out of town on vacation, of course.
Yeah.
And so, and so we literally recorded at like 4:15 p.m. on Wednesday, like before the attorney was going to close on Thursday, because if they had submitted for recording, obviously it's going to record on Thursday because the county wasn't closed, but they're closed. So they weren't going to send out any payments. And in this case, I guess it doesn't matter because the seller wasn't making anything. But we had another deal that was scheduled to close this week too, and we were just like frustrated with them. And so the win there is that we switched all of our other deals to a new attorney going forward, and they've been great. They've been really, really good. So that's exciting.
Do you
Um,
take your deals away from the attorney?
no,
You just
all,
put your new deals with a new attorney.
all of our new deals are with a new attorney. Yeah, we contemplated doing that. We're like, we're not going to burn a bridge in case we have to
Oh, so
come
then you're
back.
still going to
So
owe them some money for title search and stuff anyway. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Of course, some of these deals they probably haven't started on. That's one of our gripes with them, but that's okay.
but they might tell you they have.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to get to these questions. I'm sorry for going so long, but James commented a couple of times. So he said you can still assign. I can connect you guys with wholesale friendly attorneys if you guys need a realtor's name on the contract to work around. I can help you guys if needed. Okay, cool. So maybe Chicago will be another market we can go in. That's exciting.
Yeah,
And then he said cold calling has such a long 6 month or more cycle. It seems like is that the same for SMS? Yeah, cold calling is horrible. So my lead, I shouldn't say that, but cold calling is very frustrating for me. So my lead to close average with cold calling is 188 days. And that's including these deals that we just closed. And so what's that? Just over 6 months. So yeah,
yeah,
over 6 months for me.
yeah.
SMS is actually very close, like you said, James. SMS for me is 175, so right under 6 months. But SMS just gets such a higher return that I don't mind waiting that long for it. So yeah,
Yeah, but you do
that's
have
me.
to keep your pipeline filled, and you have to stay consistent with it. Otherwise, you're going to have erratic
Yeah,
results. Yeah,
yeah, because I don't know what your experience was like in terms of the lead to close average of cold calling, but for me, it's like I'm not waiting 6 months to get a 2x return or worse. I will wait 6 months to get an 8x return, which is what we get with texting. So I will do that, but
yeah.
I'm not gonna wait a long time and get a low return. I'll take
I
that
don't
on.
have those numbers at the ready like you do with the timeline, but I'd be curious about it. I can look it up. I
Yeah,
have to go into my Podio and mess around to find it, but yeah, I'd be curious to compare the timeline for the two of those, SMS and cold calling.
yeah, it's a good question. So, and
But
then
it's
for
like
me,
you said, the
what's
ROI
that?
is so much. It's like you said, the ROI is so much better on SMS. It doesn't matter if you're waiting, but
Yeah,
I'm not gonna wait. I mean, my
no,
ROI on cold calling last year was barely over one. It was like 1.2 or
yeah,
1.3.
yeah.
Stupid. Yeah.
I should check. Let me check real quick since I you posed that question to me. So here we go. So for my self-managed cold calling team, which I don't do anymore, my ROI is now at 5x. So that's not too bad. And then for Call Geeks, it's still at 1.8x, even with these. This one this week was from Call Geeks. So I'm only at 1.8x even after closing that one. So yeah.
That's good though that you're at five. You said 5.5 for your
No, just
in-house.
just 5x. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, those are my updated numbers after this week's closings. And then for PPC, my lead to close is 65 days. So it's a lower ROI right now for us, but it's a much, much faster cycle. So, we talked about this in the past, but if I can do a 2x every 65 days, then I basically am equaling the same as SMS, right? Because then three of those turns is a 6x. So 6x versus 8x in 6 months. So yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my closing story and everything. We could jump into tools and tricks and stuff if you want to.
Yeah. Looks like we had a couple people, and then well, if you're in the chat, drop a. If you're in the live, drop a note in the chat so we know you're there. Let us
Oh
know.
wait, James, I'm sorry. James asked a couple more questions. Let's just get to those and then we can go over tools and tricks.
Yeah.
So he said some cold calling agency people use in my market charge 1,200 to 1,600. So yeah, I mean that's about standard. We were paying like $6 an hour, and I think it ended up being around 1,100 to 1,200 bucks a month per caller. So yeah, that's average. And then for 40 to 60 leads, is that decent? Oh, he's asking for the cost comparison, 1,200 for 40 to 60 leads. That sounds low to me. That sounds low to me, but I'm not sure. With Call Geeks, they like quote unquote guarantee that you get 2 leads per caller per day. So I guess that's about the same actually. That would be 60 leads a month on average. So yeah, I guess it's about the same.
I was getting 20 or 25 leads per week from Call Geeks, I think.
And was that per caller? You getting 20, 25 a week?
I think that's just total.
Okay.
But I think what were we spending, like $600 a week on that? I can't remember. I don't have everything at my
For me, it was
fingertips.
$6 an hour. I don't remember the exact monthly cost, but $6 an hour times 40, that's 240. I think it's around 1,200. So I think James, I think we're around the same. And yeah, 40 to 60 leads. I think that's decent. But yeah, that's exactly what cold calling was for me. It was decent. So that's why I don't do it anymore. I'm looking for something that's great. But he said, you guys run out of data. I'm marketing in two main counties that we buy in for fix and flips. I feel like I'm pulling the same data over and over. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a challenge that we definitely run into. That's why we're in a bunch of different counties. I don't know how many counties you're in. I'm probably in 10 to 12 counties right now. And that way I can kind of rotate them, more frequently. Whereas one month, like for example, I think we're 12 to 15 actually, but one month maybe I'll buy data in like four main counties. Next month I'll buy the next four. Next month I'll buy the next four. So that way I'm kind of rotating every 90 days, if that makes sense. So I would say in two main counties, yeah, it definitely can be difficult to continue buying the same data over and over again. And you can use a company like REI Sift, which my dad uses to make sure you're not like buying the same exact data over and over. You can stack your lists and stuff in there, and that will save you some money.
It
And
saves you
then
some money, but you run out of leads. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
we've had to expand further and further since we implemented REI Sift, because then you really see clearly how much money you're wasting on buying the same lists over and over. Because
yeah,
you if you put everybody that you've talked to or that's in your system in REI Sift, and then you pull a new list and then you filter it against what's already in your system, you're gonna end up with like 50% of the data before you skip trace it. And then yeah, you just run out of leads faster. So we got 20 counties roughly in North Carolina, and now we're in Florida, and we were doing Ohio, but we're aborting Ohio. But yeah, and then we're rotating, similar to what Jasper said. We're rotating, we're resting lists too, because we'll remarket SMS to a list, a couple of times before we put it to bed, and the response rate drops below a certain threshold.
yeah,
But yeah, you need more areas to go into, or I mean, I guess it's still a conversation to have, and a strategy to work out about going deeper into each market, right? Like how do you go deeper into the market that you're already in without just pulling the same data and blasting everybody? Because it
yeah,
really turns into some sort of guerrilla campaign, like you've talked about, Jasper, with picking a neighborhood where you've closed deals and trying to reach out to every single person, or getting really, really boots on the ground with it and doing something crazy like what do they call those, door hangers, or door knocking, or you know,
yeah,
then switching to direct mail. Like if you're just doing cold calling, that's your only strategy, or just doing SMS and that's your only strategy, then adding strategies to those same lists will get you different responses, because people who text might not pick up the phone on a cold call. People who pick up the phone on a cold call might not answer a text. People who don't do either of those might respond to a piece of mail or postcard, right? So using multiple strategies, and then Jasper's using PPC now, and there's just, if you can hit people from different angles, then that's another way to go deeper with the same lists or the same areas you're working on.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can go broader too. Like if you're pulling lists that are kind of more niche, like if you're pulling an absentee equity list or something, that's going to give you a certain number of people. But if you know that you only want to be in two main counties and maybe you don't want to expand, you could just buy the whole county. That's what I've done in multiple counties. Like you can just literally put no filter except for maybe some equity so that they at least can make a deal with you. And then you can just buy the whole county just using like one filter, for example. And if you're going to do that, I would recommend doing an equity filter or a years of ownership filter, one of the two, or maybe both, just depending how big that list is. But ideally, you want someone with equity so you can obviously get a deal on it, and then, or you want someone who's owned it for a certain amount of time so that they didn't just recently buy it. So yeah, there's that. And then what you share with the neighborhood lists works really well for us. Even in counties where we bought a lot of data, that works really well for us. We're just buying everyone in a certain zip code or a certain neighborhood has worked really well for us. So yeah,
Yeah, and then doing different types of deals too, right? If you're only trying to do wholesale deals, then your seller pool is limited. But if you can do subject to and novation, and whatever, a variety of different deal types, then that broadens who you can be talking to about deals. Because we do subject to, so that means we can do low equity deals, right? High motivation, low equity. Well, not every investor will do that. A lot of investors just want high equity. So The
Yeah.
more different types of deals you can do, the more that expands how you can go deeper in a particular market.
Yeah, definitely. So James had a couple more questions. So I'll just read this. How much do you spend per month in marketing, comma, payroll, business expenses? Well, maybe we should just attack these one at a time. So how much do you spend in marketing and payroll? Do you want to attack that?
I hate being so ignorant about my business, but I don't know how much I spend on marketing. I um, I mean, I guess we spend 4 to 6 grand on SMS per month. Direct mail is like four K per month. Payroll, I mean, our payroll this week I think was like 2,500. So is that ballpark? Does that sound right? I don't know. I can't look stuff up as fast as Jasper can, and I have a bunch of people who manage all this stuff, so I don't always have to actually drill down.
No, it's all good. Yeah, for me, I can answer that question. For marketing, average this month is, or average this year, every single month is 22,000. And
Wow.
then for payroll, it's, I don't know. I have to look at my QuickBooks for that. I don't have that in my Podio. But I think it's 10 to 15K probably in payroll, if I had to guess. And then
Yes, same ballpark on that.
yeah, yeah, that's a guess on the payroll, but that's exact on our average marketing spend this month. And then business expenses overall per month, well, those are pretty much the business expenses. Marketing pretty much encapsulates everything. So that's launch control, that's data, that's PPC, it's everything that we spend on. And then payroll is the other stuff I spend on. So besides that, I don't really spend anything. And then do you guys ever get worried or anxious if a month is not productive as much as you guys anticipate for? Absolutely. That's what we were talking about at the
So
beginning of this.
yeah, I
At the
can go back
beginning.
and say, like, just from what Jasper said, you know, our overall number is between 25 and 30K for everything. That includes payroll and marketing and other expenses for the business. So, you know, that's what we're spending to close whatever for 4 to 6 deals a month. I mean, we average 4 closed deals per month over the last 2 years. So spending 25 to 30K per month on payroll and marketing and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, do you get anxious? We were just talking about this at the top. We closed 0 deals in May and we closed 1 deal in June after closing 9 in April. And it was a nail biter, and it actually led me to letting one of our team members go. I don't know if that was, because of that, but it was definitely, our dispo wasn't working the way we needed it to be working. So I did let somebody go in dispo. Yeah, that wasn't a financial decision. That was a health of the business decision and how to make the machine work better. But yeah, it's a crazy nail biter and really stressful. And, if I'm being 100% honest, because we call this real talk, I've put money from my personal bank accounts into the business a couple times in the last couple of months in order to make payroll. So that's stressful and no fun at all, and not why I'm in business, to take money out of my personal account and put it in the business. But I have
Yeah.
faith that we're going to bounce back, and I know what I can do with the business. I know what the business has done over the last few years, and so that's why I have done that. But it can be frustrating and discouraging for sure.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and I share the same sentiment. I mean, we had a really, really slow month in February this year. We had closed one deal and the deal was 2,500 bucks. So as I just shared my numbers, that was nowhere near covering our monthly spend. And so this year, I mean, this last month into June was also very slow for us. So, this year when I look at my QuickBooks, it's kind of laughable. I actually laugh out loud when I look at it because we have like a really, really good month. I'm like, man, that's awesome. Next month is like negative 40 grand. And then next month is like, we're out. And so it's just like, I mean, that's just what it is. And we were talking about it at the top, but I do agree that you will see a huge spike in revenue during 3 to 6 months out of the year, hopefully. And then the rest of those months might be really rough, so you just got to stick out those rough months and you'll see the highs in certain months for sure. So yeah, I mean, starting out in this business, I got this credit card from Amex, which is a godsend. It's a great credit card. It's called the Amex Plum Card, and it lets you float your expenses for 60 days. And I milked that credit card for the first couple of years in business because you can charge all your stuff, and then that bill from whatever you charge in one month is due in 60 days. And you can pay the minimum payment and you can keep kind of rolling it. And so that's what I did for a long time. But anyways, yeah, I mean it's definitely nothing's guaranteed, obviously. So And then he said, "Did I ever try iSpeed again since?" I haven't. No, I do want to try it again, but right now we're just focused on SMS. I just opened a third SMS account and we increased the limit this week, so we're sending out 2,500 per day on that new account now. So right now we're just getting that up to speed. Once I get that up to 5,000 texts per day, same as the other ones, then I will probably experiment with some more marketing. But right now, that's been working really well for us. Um, and then he said, I watched a pod with an investor who's been in real estate for 20 years. He only does 500,000 RVMs per month. He gets 500 to 800 inbound calls, 5 to 7 deals with that. He sends it to everyone he can. Yeah. I mean, RVMs work really well. We send out nowhere near that many, but we probably send out, I don't know, 30K a month or something RVMs. And they definitely work very well, especially for reviving older leads. But, the RVMs, from what I've heard, are the most illegal form of marketing. So I've heard that you can get in trouble for those. So sounds like it's working really well for that guy, but I've just never tried to do it as a mass scale thing because I've heard that from, Matt Larson over and over again to not do that. So that's why I've not done it. But yeah.
Yeah, we shut down our RVM because of all the feedback about, it changed what a year or two ago, where it's just pretty much illegal everywhere, right? It
Yeah.
was okay like 3 years ago to do it, and it wasn't cracked down on by the FCC or whoever's regulating that stuff. But then a couple of years ago, a crackdown happened, and I stopped doing RVM then because I just don't need to have my accounts frozen or my business affected by it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I shared, Matt Larson shared about that. Like you said, I think it was sometime last year, but he himself quit RVM even for follow-ups. So I haven't quit it yet. I've still been doing it just only for follow-ups, but that's the reason why we don't do it as like a mass thing. But like you said, I mean, it's a super, super cheap strategy and marketing channel. So it's definitely, if you haven't tried it, try it out with a small batch. But, this is a disclaimer. It's not legal advice. It might be illegal. So just do it with discretion. But,
yeah, and the other thing about RVM that I noticed when we were doing it, we were doing it through Smarter Contact because they have an RVM feature, and I remember doing a couple of Saturdays myself when RVM was going out, just picking up the phone. And I got so many wrong number calls that people felt it was necessary to call me back and tell me I had the wrong number.
yeah.
And it was a huge, huge waste of time. And I guess if you can have that managed by a low, somebody you're not paying much, who doesn't mind answering all those calls, or somehow with AI. But man, I was picking up the phone and like, hey, I got a voicemail from this number. It was a wrong number. That person's not here. Oh, okay, thank you. Take it,
Yeah.
put it on DNM, but just annoying. And I think also another thing to say, if you are going to do it and push the envelope, that it's a really good strategy for elderly people because the older you are, the more likely you are to return a voicemail, or instead of texting somebody, to be like, oh,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna call this person back. So, we
Yeah.
were targeting over 70 on that a lot of the time, like 70 people in their 70s and 80s, or 65 and up or something. And we did get some response, but we didn't do enough of it to really have a data set to share. But
Yeah, that's a great point. That's why I still do it to reach those older people that don't text. So yeah, we still do it. We probably get like 20 to 30 leads a week from it. So it's a good channel for us. But I do it through Slide Broadcast. He asked how we send RVM, and you just answered that. But I do it through Slide Broadcast because they directly integrate with my CRM. And so it's all done in the background. It's all automated through Slide Broadcast. So it's really nice. But yeah, so otherwise, I appreciate the questions. Definitely drop any more that you have. We're just going to go into tools and tips and tricks. If you have any new tools that you want to share, I had one that I was going to share. So I'll let you jump
yeah,
into it
I
first.
don't have anything major. I did. We've been doing the ongoing hiring discussion and testing Scale Army. I did get a really nice batch of candidates from Scale Army this week. I got 4 people, and out of the 4 people, 2 would be no's for me, but they were still pretty good. But if I'm giving them letter grades, I think I gave them either a C plus to a B or B minus. The 2 I would say no, based on job experience, presentation, energy, and the clarity of their speaking in English. And then, but the 2 people, there's 2 I would interview there, and one was Eastern European, and then the other one was from Central America, Honduras. And they both spoke really well, and both had good resumes for real estate. And Obviously, the Honduras guy is good for me because bilingual here in North Carolina is really good with Spanish.
Mhm.
But I told them I would interview both of those guys. So, and I would give them both a B plus if I was doing a letter grade in terms of their presentation and the way they speak and their resumes. So that's a nice thing to see. That's probably the best batch of candidates I've had between somewhere.com and Scale Army, if I'm just aggregating all of the candidates I've had from both those platforms. So that's a nice thing. And I only paid $300 to start a campaign with them and get candidates sent to me.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
good news.
yeah, I found a little hack when I was working on my website. My website crashed a week ago. My developer did something weird with Elementor and my business website crashed. So I went on there and got ChatGPT to help me fix it. And I went in and fixed the website. But one of the things that when I was rebuilding it is and this might not be a very universal problem, but Google reviews for me, I can't respond to my Google reviews and I can't do anything with my Google account because I have to verify my business. And Jasper got in under the deadline and got his business verified. And now you have to show like pictures of your actual bricks and mortar space and show yourself unlocking the door and the cash register and the sign and all this stuff. But anyway, there's this thing on the back end of my website that I have called Trust Index, and it's a plugin that I have for that's compatible with Google on my website. I don't know if you can just go directly to this online, but I was able to go into Trust Index on the back end of my website and respond to all my reviews.
Ah,
So completely bypass the whole Google thing where you have to sign in and be verified to respond to reviews. So I was able to just go through, and not only that, but this Trust Index offers to AI respond for you. So you can just click a button and say AI response, yes, and then they collate it for you, and then you decide if you want to edit it, and then you just submit. So
that's
I went
awesome.
through like 10 reviews and just did AI response to all of them,
That's
and
great.
that was cool. So that's just a little hack that I found. It's
Yeah,
called
I've never heard of that. That's super cool.
Trust Index. Yeah, I think that's a standalone site. I don't know that you have to do it through the back end. Like I have it on the back end of my WordPress website for my business as a
Mhm.
plugin, but I think you could probably just get a Trust Index account and bypass the Google reviews juggernaut thing if you have to be verified to respond.
Yeah, that's a great tip. No, I never heard that before. So,
And you can also that also allowed you to hide them from your website. Like I have a couple of lower reviews, so you can click whether to show it on your website or hide it, and
mhm.
hide the lower review ones, lower star ones.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah. But that's all I got for tools.
That's awesome. But yeah, along those lines, I have one called Elf Site that is just a Google plugin widget or something on that I have on my website. And it's just, it sounds similar, but it's just like a little widget that you can scroll. If you're like a person on my website, you can just scroll and see all our reviews, but it sorts them by the highest first. And so I don't think it even shows the bad ones. So same thing, you can just, you can click and click and click and click, but I don't think it'll ever show the 1 star reviews because we have a couple of those too. So yeah, that one's
Yeah.
called Elf Site and it's free. So.
Elf site, like a little elf.
Yeah, that one's completely free and you can just it's very easy to plug in on your website. You just put it in your HTML, so it pops up there. So yeah, that was good. And then other one I want to share with people, especially with like today's market, was housing alerts, because I don't think I've shared this before, but it's a website that I really like going in and looking at. And it's paid, you do have to pay for it. I think it's fairly affordable. I pay yearly and I think it's like 350 a year, so it's like 30 bucks a month or something. But it's a just a data source basically that you can look at markets and see whether they're trending up or down, see the average days on market, see the pending percentage, like pending sales percentage, see all kinds of data. They have all these things where they like score the market for you, whether it's a good market to buy rentals, fix and flip, wholesale, etc. And I really like that tool. So I just want to share that, but it is a paid tool. But you can go in there, like I said, you can look at average days on market for every zip code that you work in. You can get zip code, county, city, state, and you can choose whether you want to do one state, the whole United States. That's more expensive. But if you do one state, it's the cheapest. You can do, I think, 3 states. I think I have different packages or whatever. But you can see the all this different data, which is really good to look at. And like for me, for example, I can just pull it up right now. But for North Carolina, like it shows the days on market, which is a good indicator of kind of how hot different markets are. And so, like for example, Raleigh-Durham area is 45 days on market right now, so about a month and a half. And then, for example, Goldsboro area is 58, so it's a little bit slower market. Wilmington 54, so it kind of shows you that. And then I could also look at percentage of listings that have price drops. You can look at that. You can look at median list price, median price per square foot, average list price, all this stuff. So, anyways, but you can get really, really granular in there, and it really is a good tool and it's visual too. Like it's just a map that you can look at. I like learning stuff that way, so I really like
Yeah.
that tool.
Cool.
But yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so just want to share that. And then investor base, we always share that, but they're coming out with another new feature. They're always coming out with new features, but they're coming out with a new feature pretty soon where you can hire a VA through them, which is not like a full-time VA, but just like a per deal basis, and they'll call all the buyers for you and send you the leads. So my dad just recently hired someone to do that, and it's been a game changer for him. So I think
Yeah.
that'll be a great option for people who maybe don't want to manage a full-time VA, but still want the benefit. So just wanted to mention that to people. So
Yeah, it really helps to call all those buyers, especially if the market's slowing down. You want to be touching more buyers if possible, and they seem to source really high quality buyers with their algorithm. And yeah, as Jasper said, we brought somebody on board, and she's just been calling through campaigns on investor base for each property we have under contract and pushing buyer leads to me or my brother, and it's been great
yeah,
and really helpful.
awesome. Well, do we have any questions or comments or anything on the channel that we should address? And then James asked another question I can ask while you so RVM, and then have you guys tried RE Simply? Great CRM. I have not. I have heard great things about it though. I don't think I've ever heard someone say something bad about it, so that's good. For me, I'm just not able to, or I could, but I just don't want to switch CRMs. It's just too much of a task for me, too much of
Yeah,
an undertaking for me to do that. So
done so much work on our podios. Yeah.
yeah, but if I was to start over, I've heard that's pretty much the best CRM right now. So I've heard great things about it. I think they have like accounting built in, they have e-sign built in, they have a dialer, they have all this stuff. So it definitely sounds much nicer than Podio, but at this point, I've got like 20,000 leads and all this stuff, and I'm just not going to switch. So I'm kind of grandfathered into Podio, unfortunately. But
Yeah, it's got its pros and cons.
yeah, it's definitely got pros. I don't hate Podio, but it's definitely got some cons too. So, but at this point, I'm just sticking with it until the wheels fall off, pretty much. So,
So like 3 years ago, I did a deep dive on CRMs, and so I did do a test on it, or I looked at it, and I didn't like it. And that's when I chose that other one that I actually eventually dropped.
mhm.
But I can't. Oh, Forefront is the one I went with for a while, which has a really nice UI, really clean UI, and has a lot of great features. But I found some limitations, and then I went to sorry, my dog's barking to get in here with me. Um, then I went to Podio, but I found the interface was clunky according to my notes here. I'm looking at my spreadsheet, which has like 25, let's see, 25 CRMs that I looked at. I made some notes and I tested them.
That's
And
crazy.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do it right, so I was just trying everything and looking at everything. But I didn't make a lot of notes on this. I just passed on it, and my note was that it had a clunky interface. So whatever that's worth. It's
Yeah,
probably very different now because that was 3 or 4 years ago that I did that. So they may have completely done a revamp or redone their a whole front end for all I know. I haven't been on there.
yeah.
But yeah, it looks like we're all up to date on questions on the community section, Jasper. I think we've hit everything there.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, thank you, James, for all your questions and comments today. We appreciate it. And if you know anyone else who might want to tune in next week, feel free to let them know. We'll be doing the same time next week, 12 o'clock Eastern. So, but yeah, we
Yep.
appreciate it. Hope you have a great week too. And yeah, thank you.
One on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's about it. Unless you have anything else, we can wrap it up here.
Yep. Thanks, James. It's great to chat with you, and appreciate the great questions and everything. And thanks to anybody who joined us today. I know we had a few extra people on there, and not everybody piped in, but yeah, I don't have anything else.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks again, James. Hope you have a great week. And everyone else listening, have a great week.